Have you ever just looked around and felt like expertise is being ignored? Like we're in an age where the loudest voice wins, no matter what the facts are. Well, almost 100 years ago, a Spanish philosopher named José Ortega y Gasset wrote a book that absolutely nailed this feeling. So let's dive into the powerful and, yeah, pretty controversial theory he laid out in The Revolt of the Masses.
Right off the bat, this is the core of his argument. It's a shocking idea, right? Ortega is saying that a brand new kind of person, who he calls the mass man, has basically taken over, not with weapons, but just by being the majority, and he believes they're reshaping our world in a really dangerous way. So, let's unpack what he actually means by all this.
To really get our heads around this big idea, Ortega uses this brilliant analogy. It starts with a simple garden, but trust me, it's really about the very soul of civilization.
Okay, so I want you to picture this complex, delicate, and just absolutely beautiful garden. This isn't just any old patch of land. It stands for civilization itself. All the art, the science, the laws, all the comforts we kind of take for granted.
Now these gardeners, they're what Ortega would call the select minority. And listen, this doesn't mean they're rich or famous. They're the experts, the innovators, the people with incredibly high standards who get just how much work it takes to build and maintain something as fragile as civilization.
But then, things change. A huge crowd that used to just admire the garden from a distance decides to break down the gates and pour inside. This crowd, for Ortega, is the mass.
And here's the kicker. They don't just want to enjoy the garden, they start trampling the flowers, insisting that their opinions on how to run a garden are just as good as the experts who've been doing it for years. They feel totally entitled to all this beauty, but feel zero duty to help maintain it. And that, right there, is the heart of what Ortega calls the revolt.
Okay, but we need to be super clear about something. When Ortega talks about masses and minorities, he is not talking about social class. This is not a rich versus poor thing at all. It's all about a state of mind, a type of character. And when you put them side by side, the difference is wow. It's pretty stark. You've got the mass man who's totally self-satisfied, ungrateful, and thinks the world owes him everything. He has no desire to improve. Then you have the noble man, who is the complete opposite. He's demanding, sure, but he's hardest on himself. He feels the sense of duty, he sets high standards, and he's the one who actually builds civilization up. And Ortega really stresses anyone from any walk of life can be one or the other.
So, if this is all a battle of character, then how does the mass man actually get his way? I mean, how does this revolt actually play out in the real world?
Well, Ortega argues that the whole thing happens because a modern ideal gets twisted into something else entirely. He actually gives this powerful and dangerous phenomenon a very specific name.
He calls it hyper-democracy. Now, this isn't him bashing democracy, not at all. It's about a certain attitude that can grow inside of it. It's this belief that an opinion is valid just because a lot of people hold it. It's a total rejection of authority that comes from excellence or deep knowledge. In this world, being average isn't just okay, it becomes the standard that everyone is expected to follow.
So you have to ask, where did this mass man even come from? Why did he suddenly pop up in the 20th century? Ortega has a theory on that too, and honestly, it's a fascinating one.
He traces it all back to the 19th century. Think about it. Incredible progress created a world with more comfort and security than ever before. So, a whole new generation was born into this world, seeing it not as something that was fought for, but just the way things are. They became, and this is his phrase, like a spoiled child. They take our complex, fragile civilization for granted, seeing all its benefits as a natural right, with zero clue about the sacrifice and brilliance it takes to keep it all going. And from that mindset, the mass man is born.
To really hammer home just how dangerous he thinks this all is, Ortega leaves us with one last, incredibly powerful analogy that just perfectly illustrates what's at stake.
All right, so just imagine for a second that civilization is this giant, complex ship sailing across a huge, treacherous ocean. Now, the noble man, in this story, he's the crew, the skilled crew. He's the captain, the navigator, the engineer, the people who actually understand how the ship works and feel a deep responsibility to keep everyone safe.
And the mass man? He's living it up as a first-class passenger. He's enjoying the ride for sure. But he has absolutely no idea how the engine runs, how to read a map, or what a storm on the horizon even means.
And this is the moment of revolt. The passenger storms the bridge, shoves the captain out of the way, and just grabs the wheel himself. He's not steering based on knowledge or expertise, but on a whim, a feeling. He's demanding control without any of the responsibility or the skill that's required.
And this all leads us to Ortega's ultimate, chilling warning. The biggest threat to our civilization isn't some invader from the outside. No, it's an internal rebellion, led by the very people who benefit from it the most. A rebellion of the unqualified, a new kind of barbarian, who, in total ignorance, dismantles the very systems of excellence that made his comfortable life possible in the first place.
So that leaves us with a really big question, doesn't it? Is Ortega y Gasset's theory just some pessimistic warning from a bygone era? Or does it offer a chillingly accurate map of some of the challenges we're facing right now? That's something to chew on.